You are listening to Power Marketing with Kevin Lee. Kevin and his agency Did It have helped thousands of businesses win through superior marketing, as have his books, articles, speaking engagements, and the E-Marketing Association Power Marketing podcasts. Here's Kevin.
I'm lucky enough to be here today with Heidi Andersen, who's the Chief Revenue Officer at Nextdoor. I feel like everybody should know Nextdoor because I use it a lot. I even gave you some feedback, Heidi, on a recent change that you guys made. So, but I think not everybody is aware of Nextdoor. I mean, certainly they may be aware of like the ancient brands like Craigslist or some of the other niche brands, but you guys have sort of come in and gone gangbusters in no time, relatively speaking. So for those people who don't know what Nextdoor is, or even for me, because I probably missed some things about you, what's the sort of origin story and what's the sort of elevator pitch?
I couldn't agree with you more, Kevin. Everybody should be on Nextdoor and know about Nextdoor. So we created an app where every neighbor can connect with neighborhoods that matter to them. And what we typically see is a neighbor, when they sign up onto the app, that they are instantly connected with neighbors that are already on the app. So they are already in the sign-up process and engaging with the platform, already connected to neighbors that live in close proximity to them. And what comes with that automatic connection is, also the ability to automatically get connected with the content that's being shared on the platform. And that content can range from posts from your public agencies to your local businesses to obviously your neighbors sharing some of the insights or the tips and ideas that they want to give out to the neighborhoods around them. What we often hear from neighborhoods and from our neighbors who are coming onto the platform is because they're looking to discover what's going on in the neighborhood around them, or they're looking to tap into the community asking for help or give help. And so neighbors who come onto the platform typically have this sort of high intent utility mindset when they come onto the platform. But what we hear at the same time is when they get onto the platform, they start to engage with the neighbors, that it's really the community that keeps them coming back again and again. So the app has proven to have this great ability to create online connections, but transferring those connections into real life. And that's what we're about. It's about connecting neighbors online and moving it into real life connections.
Absolutely. And obviously you're ad supported, right? And
correct.
So a lot of neighborhoods either never had a local newspaper or they've lost their local newspapers in the last several years. So from the ability of having a tool for the local marketer and local business to reach their customers, right? You're on a short list that's getting increasingly shorter, right? Of venues that have really hyper local content, great local targeting, et cetera. And so, how should the local marketer think about, how to use Nextdoor? Because obviously they can buy the ads, but they're also part of the community. So what's the best way for them to sort of think about using Nextdoor?
Yeah, so I mean, the digital transformation has really, obviously changed a lot of things for businesses that look to local marketing. But some of the key aspects around local marketing still hold true, right? Like know your audience and really consider that they're operating within this local context. So one of the key messages we're getting from our neighbors is that they actually really love hearing from the local businesses, whether it's a large national brand with a local presence or it's a small local business that is on the neighborhood corner. They want to hear from them. And so establishing an always-on presence by, for instance, creating a business page on Nextdoor is a great way to create a foundation for at least ensuring that neighbors can discover you. So that should always be part of your local marketing strategy. And the next thing to layer on top of that, obviously, is thinking about your messaging that should be reaching your local customers and ensuring that it is as personalized as possible. So that goes back again to knowing your demographics and knowing the neighborhoods that you want to target and show up in, and tailoring that messaging into like a personalized way so you can tap into the local context and environment that obviously your neighbors are going to operate within.
Great. Well, when we steward marketing dollars for our clients, whether they're national or local, to be honest, right. A lot of when we think about locality and location, it actually tells us a tremendous amount about a person, right? Because they're either there because they live there, or they're there because they work there, or they're passing through there. And so geography is a great proxy for additional targeting levers that you may not always have access to. In addition to geography, sort of what other targeting layers or targeting levers do marketers have with regards to Nextdoor if they want to advertise?
Yeah, so geography, I will still point out, is sort of the core of it, right? And the reach that we have on Nextdoor is a little bit different than what we see in some other platforms, is that it's not by your phone location, it's by your home address. And so when you're promoting your content on Nextdoor, you're reaching people with content where they live, right? So
Right.
that's important to keep in mind, because not only should that really shape how you communicate, but it also helps ensure that you're reaching an audience that has a physical proximity to your business storefront or a local presence. But you can, layer on multiple other facets on our platform. We can identify homeowners, like who actually owns homes versus who do not own homes. We, of course, has your usual targeting, like the gender, et cetera, that we can indicate from the first party data when people sign up, our neighbors sign up on our app. So you can layer that on top of it. Income, obviously, is another layer that we can proxy into our data set. But the real power does come down to the proximity of the physical location of an address close to a business address. And you can target at that level all the way down to the neighborhood level. For our sponsored post offerings, as well as our neighborhood sponsorship offerings, you can go as granular as down to the neighborhood level, and we have 275,000 neighborhoods on the platform. So you can go down to that level. For the deals offering that we have on our platform, it's a radius targeting you can implement. And so you can target between 2 and 10 miles around your business location. So you can go really, really granular. But if you're a large national brand and you think it could be overwhelming to create, a campaign, an individual campaign for every 275,000 neighborhoods, don't worry, we got a solution for you. You can run a national campaign, and you can actually leverage dynamic insertion to help ensure that your creatives and your messages are updated down to neighborhood level, store location level. So you can run a national campaign that can come off as personalized down to the individual neighborhood level across the 275,000 neighborhoods on the platform.
So you mentioned a couple of different ad types, as well as a couple of different ways of using targeting with those ad types. So just so that people don't miss out on anything, what are the ad types, and then what are those ad types most suitable for, each of them?
So we have an enterprise sales team that works with mid-market customers, large national brands, global brands, like ranging all the way up to your, Walmart and Amazons of the world, right? And for the customers that fall within sort of this segment, the best solution to take advantage of is really our sponsored post offering, because that enables you to use all your standard sort of creatives, from click to video or click to call, to video, to lead gen, to display ads, et cetera. And you can sort of pair your data sets up with the Nextdoor data sets to really ensure that you have the right level of targeting, the right messaging in front of the right people, et cetera. So it's a solution that offers you a lot more customization, which again is very suitable for particularly large national brands. Now, we also recognize that particularly small businesses, it can be difficult to think about making all those decisions and investing all the resources that typically entails. They often don't have dedicated marketing departments, right? So we've created some solutions that are a little bit more grab and go for small businesses. And there are essentially sort of two key sets of ad solutions that I would encourage small businesses to take a look at and to implement as part of the marketing strategy. One of them is our local deals offerings. And that's the one I highlighted as you can sort of target between 2 and 10 miles around your storefront. And the power of that one really is that you can have this sort of time-bound promotion you can push out to your neighbors, which typically are your best customers, right? So if you have a special deal going on for the week, if your restaurant, a special dish you're looking to advertise, or if you are a service provider, you might be offering, your home service at a certain discount within a time-bound period. That would be a great choice to go for. Now, if you are looking to instead create more awareness in your neighborhood around your business, or you have a specific call to action, like you want to sell your products to our neighbors, going with the neighborhood sponsorship is a great offering. It's a very easy setup. It's very easy to run. And it's, again, down to the neighborhood, the zip code level that you can target. And so you can very much control where it goes and control the value you can generate from it. But you can see sort of the range, and we specifically have developed a suite of solutions that can help businesses of all sizes find value on our platform. And it sort of ranges in scale too, in terms of sophistication that's required to take advantage of the products.
Right, right. Well, I know that Nextdoor doesn't replace local journalism, but are there situations where you've either been able to partner with local journalism? I know that occasionally I see sort of spillover between local journalism ending up in my feed, right? For example, if something gets covered and it ends up in my feed. But are there any interesting ways that Nextdoor is interacting with sort of the local journalism organizations because you're both hyperlocal at the same time?
Yeah, I mean, we do have partnerships with local, media outlets that we certainly, are excited about and we continue to build on. What's also exciting is just the abundance of stories that we are finding on Nextdoor, right? And they come in all like flavors, and it's sort of creating sort of this rich set of content that you can go through. Some of my favorite stories are the ones where either a story shared about a local hero, or it's a story where you can really see the communities coming together. Particular, like one of my top favorite stories is about Sean, who grew up in Nashville in a neighborhood that went through gentrification in this past couple of decades. And as the gentrification took effect, Sean became increasingly nervous about going around in his neighborhood on his own. He felt really uneasy. He finally decided to share with his neighborhood that he felt uneasy about going into the neighborhood on his own, and was surprised to find that many neighbors came back and said they want to walk with him. Like they're not happy about the fact that he's feeling so uneasy, and they would be more than happy to accompany him. And so he ended up posting on Nextdoor that he was going to go for a walk at a certain date and time, and lo and behold, 75 neighbors showed up. And to this day, they still go for walks regularly together. And these are people from different backgrounds, like you name it, right? Who all live in the same community and are now coming together and sharing this experience. And that absolutely made both the Nextdoor headlines as well as the local news outlets. So we see many different types of stories, but that's one of the ones that really warms my heart as I'm going through the roll index of great stories that are happening on our platform.
Yes, absolutely. That is a great one. I could certainly see that happening maybe to a slightly lesser scale in my neighborhood. It's interesting to see what the algorithm picks to include in my personal feed, which of course shows up in email or if I happen to go into the app. But for some reason, animals and pets just seem to over-index in general, which of course it just shows the people's passion for their pets. But the lost dog, lost cat stuff. And with the happy endings, which is really what I think the most amazing stuff is, like somebody will post about their lost dog, and then within 12 hours, often, Rover is found, right? And that ends up in the feed. So it is really sort of real time. It's like a real time reality show of your neighborhood, of what's going on there. Obviously only publicly viewable stuff for the most part. But that's been really great. And I think that for the most part, the human moderators, I'd love you to talk about those, because obviously they help create and maintain a brand safe environment for the advertisers. So I'd love to have you talk a little bit about that.
Right. So when we go to work every single day, one of the key things we lead with is we have to earn trust from our neighbors, and that includes our customers every single day. And we know that is something that is earned by consistent actions over time, right? And it can very easily be taken away. And so we lead, it is a core component of what we lead with and how we make decisions every single day at Nextdoor. And so we've taken a three-pronged approach when it comes to brand safety. I'll start by saying, like, one of the key things we lead with is having created very strict guidelines around the content that can and cannot be shared on Nextdoor. And we are communicating those guidelines on a regular basis. In fact, when you sign up on Nextdoor, the first thing you're met with is a sort of a good neighbor pledge that you have to agree to. And that's to ensure that you don't just sign off and check a box that says terms and conditions, and then you move on and you start posting without actually having reflected on our guidelines, but ensuring you pause and you take a look at our guidelines and understand what they are, and you decide to agree to them. Now, we understand that in addition to guidelines and to policies, people move quickly and the days are happening, and you can be, especially digitally, right? You can very easily post content that may or may not always be in congruence with our policies and our guidelines. So we've been very fortunate. We have a huge volunteer base of community leaders and reviewers who are regularly going through the content on our platform, neighbors have the ability to flag content they're seeing that is violating our policies, that doesn't look brand safe, if you will, and our community reviewers and our neighbor leads will take a look at those. Our strategy on that front is very much guided by a external advisory board that we've recruited as well. And so you have a large body of people across all the countries where we're present who are really helping us ensure that the content is appropriate on our platform. We have also invested in our own team within Nextdoor, our operations team, who are handling any type of information that is not following our guidelines or may be questionable, that is screened and detected by technology, which leads me to sort of the third prong in our approach, which is technology. Because while you have policies and you have systems in place, we also want to implement the power of technology to ensure that we both catch content that might have potentially come through or is questionable. So one of the great innovations that we've created is, as you write a post on Nextdoor, and if you're writing about a topic that we detect might potentially violate one of our guidelines, before you post, you'll see a kindness reminder pop up. And so what that does is that it helps you slow down for a moment and take a look at, oh my gosh, I signed up on this pledge. Is what I'm about to share actually something that is in, that is in adherence to the guidelines, or might it potentially violate? And just that slowdown has significantly decreased, some of the content that otherwise would have slipped through the cracks as somebody was posting on the platform. On top of that, we are, of course, using technology to classify content on our platform and ensuring that we pick up on whether it's keywords or context for comments, understanding when certain words are used in the right context versus when it's used to potentially do harm to whether it's brands or whether it's a topic or what it may be, right? So we're using guidelines, systems, guidelines, policies, systems through people, and then we're using technology to a great extent to ensure that our platform stays brand safe.
Right. Yeah, I've gotten those warnings. Usually it's sort of been sort of a false positive, but a couple of times I did rethink exactly the language or the wording that I would use before I actually hit submit. Yeah. The other sort of pop-up, which I think has improved over time, is did you mention the business pop-up, which is sort of if a business was mentioned, you give the poster an opportunity to tag the business in the post. And I think that's something that's important for the businesses to know, because once they're there, once Nextdoor knows about them, right, there's a chance that they could end up getting tagged. So what's the best practices around that? Like, should they be monitoring when they're getting tagged? Should they be using that as a from a sort of earned media or publicity or PR perspective as a way to sort of get in there and interact in a different way than they would in typical social media, right? Which tends to not be as hyper local. It seems like they should be perhaps dedicating some time to understanding what their community is saying about them. Yeah,
what you're pointing out is we're seeing it increasingly happening on our platform. So this organic, mentioning and recommendations of businesses in neighborhoods. And when we started seeing that happening, we started identifying, ways where neighbors could tag local businesses, so local business can sort of follow along and see when they're getting mentioned, right, and they can engage in the conversation, whether it's positive or negative, right? It goes back to what I sort of mentioned earlier when we were talking about like local marketing strategies. A great way to really get started with that is to create that business page, because that gives neighbors a very easy way to tag you on Nextdoor in whatever conversations that they're having. And those recommendations will feed back into your business page, right? So if I am to look you up in our directory as a local business, like you will appear and all the recommendations will appear as well. And you can get a really great sense on like what is the sentiment in your neighborhood about you as a brand, as a business. And you can tap into it and it can inform your marketing strategies, right? This is one of the organic powers, if so to speak, right, of the platform. And as we continue to build out the Nextdoor platform, we absolutely want to find ways where we can help local businesses both, convert those conversations into meaningful potential customers and leads for them and turn them into real customers. So it's absolutely part of our roadmap to really think about how can we create even more value for local businesses. Right now, we are just excited about the increasing usage. And the latest data I sort of looked at the other day was that we have more than 50 million recommendations right now of businesses on our platform. And the number just continues to grow. exponentially, like year over year. So there's a great opportunity here for local businesses to be both present and to capitalize on the mentioning and recommendations on our platform.
Right. Yeah, I was pleasantly surprised when your team forwarded me over the stats that 1 in 3 households are currently on the platform in the United States, which is already a pretty decent penetration rate given the length of time that you guys have been active and expanding. And I would imagine that within that number, you've got sort of your power users. I certainly see them on the platform, but that I feel like that's all they do every day because they're just on there all the time. And then you've got the sort of less frequent users. So from the marketer's perspective or the business's perspective, how should they think about the level of touch that they'll typically see, within the platform? Is it very lopsided, like 95/5 or 90/10 or 80/20, or there's just a lot of heavy users across those 1 in 3?
Yeah, I mean, so you're right. There are certainly a percentage of neighbors that are engaging heavily on our platform and are finding tremendous value with coming back multiple times a day. Percentage-wise, I'm hard pressed to give you like an exact number right now, but it's no different than what you see on most platforms. There are a smaller portion of neighbors that are the heavy users who come back all the time. But what we are seeing, and especially as I'm sort of looking at advertiser value creation, right? Like, think about your marketing strategy in a way where you are creating multiple touch points with the audience, right? So yes, there are heavy users who come back all the time, but you can set frequency capping around those to ensure that you eliminate the same people from seeing your ad all the time, right?
Right.
So apply the same techniques as you're applying in other social media platforms. We are not really different when it comes to that. So that is one strategy where I would encourage you to think similar as you think about it on other platforms.
Right. And as a result of that, do you also recommend sort of a creative refresh schedule where they advertisers change their creative up and try new things to sort of make sure that that if a person obviously is hit a frequency cap, but they still want to have a conversation with that person, one way to get around that is to just come up with some new creative, right, and rotate in the new creative. So is there a best practices around sort of how frequently a local business should change up their messaging and their creative?
So we're seeing less fatigue around creatives, especially from local businesses. And, part of that, and this is a hypothesis at this moment because we're still building out, some of the insights around that. But the hypothesis really is that neighbors are just so excited about the local businesses. In fact, they're just really excited about any engagement they can have with them. And I think one of the fortunate outcomes of the pandemic is that neighbors have gotten to really appreciate to a much greater extent local businesses in their neighborhoods. And so we are not really seeing as much that creative fatigue as you might see on other platforms. But it is always, of course, recommended to ensure that your creatives are, reflecting where your business is at and what you're looking to offer and the messaging that you want to put out there currently, right? And the more you can personalize those and ensure that they connect back into, again, that local context that the neighbors are in, the better that is. And again, if you have deals, promotions, make sure you obviously update those ongoing over time. And if you happen to be one of the businesses that tend to lean very heavily on let's call it a smaller set of audiences that is on the higher engaged, to ensure that you're not hitting that fatigue, yes, do think about your creatives, right? I do ensure that they stay somewhat fresh. But we're seeing less of, overall, we're seeing less fatigue from local businesses than you would potentially think than when you're looking at some of the other platforms.
Great. Well, it's good to know that you'll get a lot of mileage out of your creative. If it's good, obviously. If it's bad, you should change it out anyway.
Yes, and still personalize it, right? That's really the key theme. I want to make sure marketers who are listening to this podcast take away, right? Personalization is powerful, especially in a local context.
Absolutely. The other thing I was sort of surprised about was your international expansion. Are there any things that are sort of unique within some of your first countries where you've got a pretty decent foothold, where maybe the marketers either in those countries or even multinational marketers saying, "Oh, this is great. I now have another way to reach Mexico or whatever," that they should think about, the Nextdoor iterations within those other countries?
we have primarily been focused on our foothold in the US. And it's one of the key reasons, like driving focus and why we're in 1 of 3 households in the US. And so because of that focus, we are still in the early days of expanding globally. We are in 11 countries total, and we are only monetizing in 4 countries currently. So outside of the US, the UK is really the key country where we are starting to really find great grounds, and our advertisers are finding great success as well. As you know, with the ads business, you sort of have to get to a certain scale before it sort of really makes sense, right? So the UK is absolutely up there. We're in 1 in 5 households already in the UK, and that number climbs like rapidly as well. So our successes are numerous for advertisers. We are seeing again and again that we are creating great value for UK advertisers. When it comes to the other countries, like other countries we're in are Canada and the Netherlands, still very much early days, but the feedback we're getting too is lots of excitement in the marketplace, lots of potential, lots of upside. And we are taking a really hard look as we get into this next year at our international strategy, because we're really thrilled and excited about what we're seeing already, and it's very, very promising. And so it's just a matter of sort of sequencing a little bit and expanding over time. So I would say, like, stay tuned, follow along, and there's going to be a lot more value created across neighborhoods from a global perspective.
Great. And to the final question is really, obviously you can't share any hidden product roadmap examples, but are there any things that are sort of coming up soon, either from a new ad format perspective or a new targeting layer, or something that you're sort of excited because you'll be rolling it out within the near future, or could be like in the recent past, just something new that people should consider testing if they haven't tried it yet?
Yeah, you're right. I cannot disclose too much what's coming down in our roadmap. What I will say is, like, we're excited about some of the surfaces that we have in our platform that are still that have so much promise and potential in them, right? I sort of shared with you earlier, we launched our vaccine map. And during the pandemic, we launched our help map also, that allowed neighbors to share with the neighborhood that they have time available and they have the opportunity potential to help with all kinds of different errands. So walking the dogs and you name it, right? And we saw that really take off, and we saw neighbors being excited about the idea of sort of leaning into that help neighbors would be offering. So the maps evolution is a really exciting one for us, and obviously looking to see how we can turn that into continuously like a value experience for advertisers, because there's a lot of promise and potential in that, because it does, go closely into, again, the idea of what Nextdoor is based on, which is proximity, right? And really bringing that experience to life digitally as well. So it's another example where you can bring the offline to online and online to offline connection in a lot of ways. So that's an area I'm personally particularly excited about. And for more, we're going to have to connect at a later point in time, and I'll be happy to share with you some of the new innovations that we are thinking about in Nextdoor.
Great. Well, I'm sure I'll see them, because I'm a heavy enough Nextdoor user that I'll probably see one and I'll be like, aha, there it is. That's the one that Heidi couldn't tell me about.
I appreciate you using our platform. And, for anyone else who is sort of excited about trying us out from a marketer's perspective too, you can always check us out on business.nextdoor.com, and we'll be happy to work with you and ensure that you get to experience what you were experiencing, Kevin.
Great. Well, thanks again for joining me, and look forward to seeing what the next chapter brings.
Thank you too. Have a great day.
Kevin Lee's Power Marketing is available on all your favorite podcast networks. Kevin loves helping businesses excel at marketing. Having marketing challenges? Just like Santa in The Miracle on 34th Street, if Kevin can't help you, he'll know someone who can. Find him on LinkedIn, subscribe, or follow.